There, I'm Mr. Ridgway, and welcome to the Urban Game. Now, this is meant as a kind of go-along guide to a game that I have in my world history classes, but you can also do with this guide here, step by step. So what's going to happen is that basically the video will pause, and I'll put in a screen for you to pause at certain locations, and you'll do whatever it says here in the description. Now, please be aware that this video, some of the descriptions are pretty long because there is a fair bit of drawing, and really it's a whole lot of drawing involved in this game. So, if you need a link to what each particular step is in the game, and we'll get to how it's played here in a second, you can find that down in the description below. But you can also find a copy of it in the notes for each particular slide if you have access to my lesson via Canvas. If you already know how to play, you're more than welcome to skip ahead. If not, we're going to move ahead and take on this game. Okay, so what do you do? Alrighty, you will be designing an industrializing village over a period of 21 rounds. Basically, it's over around 105 years. And you're going to be doing this on a poster board. My classes are going to be doing it on a legal piece of paper, which is, I think, like a 8.5 by 14. Each round will demand that you draw something on your village. You add to it, or perhaps you even take things away. How to play is super easy. Just do exactly as I say, which is I would never give you that as life advice, as mentioned on the notes. And then make sure that the units that you draw are all the same size. So don't shrink them down as you go, because first of all, that's cheating. And second of all, it's meant to feel very uncomfortable as you go towards the end of the game. And your only goal, besides making sure you do everything I say, ill-advised, is to make sure that you do not run out of room on your poster, okay, or in your village, so to speak. Okay, so you can see all the symbols here. So we have a house, a church, a school, a tenement, which is like think of it like a bunch of very teensy tiny houses / apartments stuffed in one building, a museum or a theater, a hospital, a store, a graveyard, RIP, jail, factory, coal mine, a pub, a bridge, a canal, and roads and railroads. Okay, so with that in mind, these are your drawing symbols. Mostly I try to, for my classes, I try to keep them about an inch tall and wide. Okay, so with that in mind, what is your setting for your game? So you've got your paper, okay? So this description is a little bit long, so I'm going to use my sultry, interesting voice to keep you going here for a while. So this setting, a village in England, 1700. The year is 1700, and the nation is England. I feel like I just said that. The scene is a rural village. Draw a river across your paper connecting east to west. The river should be about 1 inch wide. Draw a simple wooden bridge crossing the river. Draw 2 roads, one running north to south and crossing the river at the bridge, and one running from east to west. Neither road need be a straight line. Draw 10 houses, 1 church, 1 cemetery, 1 store, 1 pub, 1 coal mine, and at least 50 trees. Okay, so if you need to pause, you need to do all that. Okay, the link is all right here where you need to draw, okay, and you guys will get used to this as time goes on, and while you're drawing, I'm going to give you some wonderful details here about what life is like. So life here in our rural village is similar to other villages throughout Europe in the 18th century. Change traditionally comes very slowly. People moved at a much slower pace and had access to very little information about the world outside their village. London, England's largest city, and one of the 2 real cities in Europe, had a population of about 750,000 in 1750. 3 out of every 4 Englishmen and Englishwomen were rural and lived in small villages like this one. The average village was inhabited by about 200 to 400 people. The tallest structure in the village was the church. The religion of England, if you did not know, is Anglican, the Church of England. Home life and work life were closely integrated, as most work was done in nearby fields or in the home or perhaps an adjoining workshop. The family was an economical unit as well as a social one. Every member of the family worked very hard from sunup to sundown. Even small children, yes, small children, had chores. The homes of villagers, were very small, with earthen floors and inadequate lighting and ventilation. All members of the family slept in the same room and sometimes shared living quarters with the livestock. Sons worked with their fathers farming and tending livestock, while daughters worked with their mothers cleaning, cooking, sewing, and at other domestic chores. Life expectancy was slightly over 40 years of age. Many people married in their teens and had babies before they were 20. It was common for women to die during childbirth, so the average marriage only lasted about 15 years. Stepmothers and stepfathers were common. One baby out of 3 died before their first birthday. Only one child out of 2 saw their 21st birthday. Feels bad now. Unlike France, the English were not rigidly divided into social or legal estates. However, there was a distinct social system. Most people did not have cats. Actually, people kept cats outside their homes to kill predators. This is called, by the way. Most English were poor farmers. A few were middle class, like the bourgeoisie of France. They lived, for the most part, in London. Still, a small few were aristocrats and usually owned large tracts of land in the English countryside. For both peasant and aristocrats, the soil was the key to their economy. Land was the source of livelihood and well-being. Having enough land to produce adequate food, or produce enough to sell, or even to rent, was the key to economic survival. Traditions concerning land guided daily living. These traditions were designed to ensure the stability and welfare of the greater community. Hence, marriages and inheritance were geared to maintaining family property intact. Marriages were always arranged by parents, sounds fun, to maintain or better the economic status of their sons or daughters. Not all could get married, however. A man had to generally own land to support a family before he dared to marry. It was not uncommon for men to wait until their 30s when they inherited property from their parents, which enabled them to marry another. If a woman did not bring land into the marriage, she had to have some kind of dowry. Daughters who inherited property from their husbands had to pass it on to their husbands. All land was given to the eldest son, a practice called primogeniture, while younger sons might receive cash payments or wait for their older brother to die. Because that's the way to do it. The main occupation of England was farming. Private and public lands were not separated by fences as they are today. Every village had a public area called the commons. This was land which was available to anyone for pasturing, hunting, the gathering of firewood, growing of crops, etc. So poor farmers who did not own their own land, or rented, could kind of eke out a marginal living by depending on the commons. Unlike France, most English peasants or farmers did own their own land, however small. Villages were connected by a system of dirt roads that became almost impassable during the wet season. As a result, transportation was often slow and trade beyond the village was not easy. Most English farmers never visited any place further than 25 miles from their birthplace, ever. People made their own food, clothes, furniture, tools, and homes. A few items which could not be produced could be obtained from wandering peddlers who often brought with them news. Finally, for fuel, there were 2 sources: firewood and coal. Nearly every English village had a coal mining operation. These mines employed a small number of village dwellers, especially in the winter. Coal pits from which coal was extracted belonged to the owner of the property where the coal mine was situated. Over the next 100 years, a revolution as significant as the Neolithic Revolution, or evolution, when man turned from hunting and gathering to agriculture, will completely change life in your village. Some historians believe this revolution, the Industrial Revolution, is the most fundamental change in human history. We will experience some of these changes in the next few hours. God, I hope it doesn't take me this long to read a couple hours. Or to take me a couple hours to read this. So, okay. So there you go. You've got all your stuff to draw. You've got your village in England in 1700. When you're ready, we can continue on to the next step. It is now 1745. England's geography is unique in that no section of the country is more than 90 miles from the sea, and there are many navigable rivers that crisscross the countryside. An enterprising young capitalist, you decides to invest money in the construction of a canal. This is not a public venture, but rather a private one. The profits from your canal are astonishing. For example, one canal built in 1745, the Oxford Canal, yielded a 300% annual return for its investors for a period of more than 30 years. This new revolution in transportation reduced the price of raw materials and reduced the cost of transportation drastically. Coal can now be transported from the mines to the towns for half the price of a horse wagon transportation. Since you invested your money, thereby making a tidy profit, build yourself one nice home anywhere on the map you would like it to be. Don't forget to construct the canal. It must run parallel to the river. Parallel. Okay, so one canal parallel to the river and one nice house. As soon as you're ready, you can move on with me to the next step. Round 2. It is now 1750. For a variety of different reasons, soap, diet, sanitation, etc., in England, there is a population explosion in your village. The cursed bubonic plague, which for centuries wiped out your village, has been virtually eliminated due to the disposal of sewage in the canals and then ultimately the ocean. Go ahead and add 5 houses for a total of 50. As soon as you're ready, you can move on. Round 3, 1760. Don't know why that says 1745, but hey, that's okay. It's 1760. The people of your village need a bit more food and goods to meet the needs of the new inhabitants. Coincidentally, a number of noteworthy events occur around 1760. First, a number of new mechanical inventions for farming are developed. Perhaps the greatest impact was Jethro Tull's creation of the seed drill and the horse-drawn cultivator. Also, farmers began to experiment with new, more productive farming practices like crop rotation, new fertilizers, and new livestock breeding techniques. Sounds great. Consequently, farm production is significantly increased. But there is one problem. Most farmers own one tract of land. Why should they, or how could they, invest in expensive machines when their land is so small? What's more, it's almost impossible to buy land from anyone. At the same time, pressure is placed on Parliament, again that's England's government, by large and small landowning farmers to make more land available. Where is that land coming from? The Commons, of course. You know, because the thing all the poor people need. A series of laws called the Enclosure Acts are passed by Parliament. This means that landowners can buy pieces of common land from the government. Go ahead right now and fence off an area 3 by 3. This says 3 by 3 inches to be reserved as a commons. I would say you can probably even do that like by 1 and 1/2 inches. So 1.5 and 1.5 inches length width. Now go ahead and please add 5 more houses for a total of 20 and 1 more nice house. So, it is now 1773. A man named Richard Arkwright invents a new machine that can spin and weave cloth 100 times faster than could be done by hand in a farm cottage. The most common way of producing cotton cloth up to this time. The cottage industry. Oh, would send people out to work. Okay, cottage industry. He calls his new machine the water frame because of its principal source of power was water. Man, he really busted out the creativity there. Let's imagine that the first water frame was built in your village, because of the river, of course. Since the water frame was large, a special building was needed, and thus the first factory for producing cotton cloth was built. Add 1 factory, no smoke, remember, it is powered by water. And remember, the cotton factory must be placed on the riverbank. Canal water is not swift enough to generate the power to the working parts of the water frame. Don't add any smoke to the factory. Add 5 houses for the workers, for a total now of 25. And carry on with me when you're ready. It is now 1774, just 1 year later. Workers are needed to work in this new factory. Since many people, women, cannot compete with the spinning and weaving of cloth made in the factory, there are large numbers of poor families who have lost their livelihood due to the Enclosure Acts. And we do now have an available supply of workers. People move to your village to find work. Add 15 houses now for a total of 40. 1 church, 1 pub, and 1 store. You may draw additional roads and 1 additional bridge. Okay, so 15 houses, 1 church, 1 pub, 1 store, roads as you need them, and 1 additional bridge. Okay, so now it is now 1775. The profits from the first textile factory are enormous. It should be no surprise that Richard Arkwright is referred to with 2 titles: the first millionaire and the father of the factory. New factories are built in your community. Add 5 new factories. They must be on the riverbank, because again, they need water power. The early owner of these factories called themselves capitalists because they had the capital or money to purchase the raw material, the building, the water frame, and to pay their workers a fixed wage and make a profit. Add 5 houses for a total of 45. Okay, so 5 new smokeless factories on the river and 5 houses. It is 1780. Unemployed workers from surrounding areas flood into your community looking for work. Although wages are very low, they look attractive to starving families. Housing is in great demand for the first time, a new kind of housing is constructed called tenements. Here, dozens of families reside under 1 roof. Add 5 tenements. It is now 1781. More workers need to live, eat, shop, drink, and worship. We need the social support services to go along with the demand. Add 1 store, 1 pub, 1 church, and 1 school for those families wealthy enough to send their children, their boys of course, to school. Since workers in the factories work 6 days a week, the only day of rest is Sunday. People flock to your churches, so make them convenient for their tired feet. So again, that's 15 houses, 1 church, 1 pub, 1 store, school for boys, an additional roads as you need them, and an additional bridge, it says here too, you can add. So a couple things there on the end to make sure you remember. It is now 1782. Workers work long, hard hours in the factory. The average workday begins at 6 a.m. and ends at 9 p.m. There is only a 30-minute break for lunch. After work, exhausted and stressed out, workers stop at their local pub for some relaxation. Alcohol begins to be consumed throughout England, in record amounts. Add 5 more pubs and destroy 5 houses to make room for them, for now a total of 40, and add 4 more tenements. There's more people coming to work. It is now 1783. Workers barely eke out a marginal existence. There is never enough money to save, and some workers go into debt. Few, if any, could afford to send their children to school. Still, there are a few families whose lifestyle is quite comfortable, even luxurious. Who are they? They are the large landowning families and factory owners. Add 2 special houses for them. Handsome manor houses are built, and some are lavishly furnished with art. These nouveau rich, are not part of the aristocratic class of England, but they can now enjoy some of the refinements of the aristocratic rich, such as food, servants, furniture, education, fine clothing, carriages, etc. So add 1 factory, add 15 houses for management people, now for a total of 55 houses. And please note at that any time in the game now, like for the future, you can remove trees if you need the space. Okay? So that is a rule change you want to make sure you keep in mind. Alright, moving on. The year is 1785. A man named James Watt invents a new engine called the steam engine. The steam engine replaces the water frame. First, it's far more efficient. Second, it allows factories to be built away from the river. This source of power is more mobile, and capitalists quickly replaced their water frames with steam-powered weaving and spinning machines. The main business in England is still textile manufacturing, making clothes. Add 10 factories now with smoke. Add smoke to all other pre-existing factories. And also add one nicer house since people continue, of course, to get rich. Add 5 houses for a total of 60 and add 1 more tenement. Alrighty, things are definitely cruising along here by round 11. Round 12. The year is 1800. A man named Henry Court has just invented the huddling process. This process makes it possible for coal, which is fortunately an abundant supply in England, to be used as the primary fuel in the new iron industry. Consequently, your town is thrust into the new age of heavy industry. Larger factory districts appear which manufacture iron at low prices and that can easily be transported by your canal. Add 1 new coal mine and a new iron bridge to replace the old wooden one. Add 5 houses now for a total of 65. Round 13. 1815. Coal miners are busy, well, of course, mining coal. There is great demand for coal right now, home heating, fuel for the steam engines, and for the production of iron. Add another coal mine. Although in the 1700s, coal miners were adults who worked in the winter to supplement their wages, in the 1800s, they're typically children between the ages of 8 and 14, as you can see in this picture. The work is dangerous and unhealthy. Children become victims of what's called black lung. Basically, they just get their lungs full of coal dust and they get super sick. Explosions and accidents. Their growth is stunted as they spend their 14-hour days stooped over. They're malnourished and unable to exercise or eat properly. Casualty rates go up. Draw 1 cemetery. So you're adding on 1 coal mine and 1 cemetery. Yeah, that doesn't look fun. Okay, round 14, 1820. The existing canals and dirt roads cannot accommodate the heavy industrial traffic. New experiments with transportation using the power of a steam engine are tried. The most successful appears to be a steam engine that pulls a series of wagons or cars on an iron track. I don't know, sounds suspicious. The first railroad is tested and proves to be quite effective. Add 1 major railroad line connecting all your factories to your coal mines. So, yes, literally, you must have a railroad line that connects all your little individual factories, if they're all over the place, to your coal mines. It is 1 continuous track which must connect all factories and mines, and it should attempt to go from east to west. Meaning, okay, you may have factories and mines all over the place, but your line needs to make sure, like a function, whoa, bringing out the math, that it passes the line test, meaning that you have to make sure you go from east, or well, for you guys to be east to west. Okay? It says you may build additional railroad bridges only as you must. Add 5 houses for a total of 70 for our railroad builders. So this one's a little bit complicated. Just make sure that it's only 1 railroad line and it has to go, again, from east to west. Okay, so that would be from the left side of your paper to the right side. It is 1827. This new revolution in transportation draws thousands of people to your community. Soon, there becomes a surplus of workers. Capitalists who wish to ensure their profits decide to hire women and children over men because they can perform the same factory labor at 1/2 to 1/4 of the price. More and more children leave their homes to work. Depressed, ashamed, and angry about their wives, many men turn to crime and the social life of the pub. For the first time in England's history, alcoholism appears in epidemic proportions. Family life that existed for hundreds of years in England is disrupted. Family members seldom eat together or see each other. Add 1 jail, 2 pubs, and 2 tenements. It is 1835. Using steam engines, iron, and soon steel, British manufacturers introduced power-driven machinery in many industries. The production of shoes, clothing, ammunition, and furniture becomes mechanized, as did printing and papermaking. People used machines to cut and finish lumber, to process foods, and to make other machines. Some new inventions and innovation processes have important byproducts. These byproducts often developed into separate industries. For example, iron smelters used coke. No, not that kind of coke. as a byproduct of coal to improve the smelting process. Then someone discovered that the gases that coal released during the coke making process could be burned to give light. During the 1830s, London and other towns become the first communities to pipe in gas to burn in their streetlights. Soon all around England, hundreds of towns use gas to light streets and homes. Please go ahead and add 20 street lamps, and these are street lamps, so make sure they are located along your main streets. Okay, major intersections. It is 1838. Let's look at the working conditions in the factories. The two predominant factories are textile and iron/steel. Working conditions in either of these two were appalling. Many workers contracted the deadly factory fever or white lung disease. It was probably a variety of lung ailments, anything from cancer to tuberculosis to emphysema, etc. Other workers were injured on the job or in factory accidents. There were no protective railings around the huge moving mechanical parts of machinery. Children, weakened from lack of proper sleep or diet, stumbled in the machinery and were mutilated. Women with long hair that become undone often found themselves caught in moving machinery. Regardless, if you were unable to work, you were fired. There was no health insurance. There was always a daily line of unemployed workers who are waiting to fill your potentially vacant job. Add 2 hospitals and 1 more cemetery. It is 1840. There is a need for quicker transportation. Coal, iron, finished products, and raw materials must all be transported from one area of England to another. In Ireland, in the late 1830s, a devastating potato famine drove hundreds of thousands of Irish to England. Here was the cheapest labor possible to build more railroads. Add 1 more railroad line passing east to west through your town. Add 5 houses for a total of 75 and 1 tenement for the new railroad workers. Please be aware though, your railroad line cannot cross over your other railroad lines. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. You cannot have a place where, for example, the railroad connects right to the end of the other one and then it just keeps going. The reason why you can't do this is because when railroads were built, they had different gauges, meaning widths of the track. So, could 2 different gauges of track meet at the same station? Yes, but the lines could never start with one and then continue on to another. Okay? Now, if you have them actually cross over each other, that's okay. It would be unlikely that that would ever happen, but it's possible. Just make sure that you're not having one start and then your second line picks up on the end of that for some reason. Alrighty, so the last few rounds. Round 19, here we go. It is 1842. There are some advantages to our urban dwellers. City life is very different from the country life. For a small but growing middle class, a whole new cultural life is available. Museums, theater, opera, restaurants, plazas, and concerts are made available. Whereas before only the aristocrats could afford the arts. Okay, I'm done. But now the middle class enjoys the fine life of culture and good living. Add 1 theater and 1 museum. Add 2 private schools for upper class students. Mark these schools with the letter P. And 1 normal school. You know, for the normal kids. Add 1 nice house and 10 regular houses. Okay? It looks like I forgot the 10 regular houses here, so make sure you guys do that, okay? I'll fix this on the slides. It is 1845. There are no pollution controls, so the air in your community looks dark. Windows, walls, even trees are covered with layers of soot and coke. Well, that's interesting. The river that once flowed through your quiet village for hundreds of years is now unfit for drinking, bathing, or laundry. A new disease begins to take the lives of people. Malignant tumors grow in people's bodies, and the term cancer is first used in the medical profession. The average life expectancy for the poor classes is now 30 years of age. Your city is overcrowded and shrouded in factory smoke. The noises, the loss of privacy, and the loss of the family unit shatters the peace of the old ways. Suicide rates double, and then triple. Add 2 cemeteries, 1 jail, and 1 hospital to accommodate the victims of urban. Round 21. The last. It is 1850. By this year, several million acres of good English land has been enclosed and sold to private parties who own large estates. Despite the misery this creates for England's landless poor, the economy benefits for the rich are obvious. The farmers purchase the newest power-driven machinery and can easily feed the working class of England, including the Irish. The small landowning farmer is crushed by the enclosed commons. They cannot afford the machinery and therefore cannot compete and grow food profitably. Thousands of these folks leave their villages, where their ancestors had lived for hundreds of years, and move to towns and cities looking for work to feed their families. Some refused to leave but took jobs working for the large landowning families. By the thousands, they moved to the bleak, uninviting towns of the north and the new cotton mills. Add a whole bunch of stuff. 15 houses, 4 more nice homes, 2 stores, 7 tenements, 2 churches, 8 factories, 1 school, and 5 golden rings. No, 5 pubs. Build 1 city hall for a mayor. So you can see in this game, by the time you've gotten to this point, okay, and I'll, again, pause this if you haven't finished, because I don't want to ruin the experience for you. Okay, but if you've now drawn everything, you're going to see, man, life gets incredibly cramped, incredibly hectic, very, very quickly. And it all goes back to those things with the agricultural revolution, and then also with basically the efficiency of what happens when you put prim together. People, resources, investment, and then just people willing to actually have the motivation to go out and make something happen. And you can see life has really dramatically changed from all the way back. And again, this seems ridiculous now that we've gone through this experience, but all the way back from our original English village, let's see what that looked like. Oh man, yeah, that's quite a bit different, right? I mean, just based off even the picture. Okay, so you can see the gigantic transformations that happen through this game, and hopefully it's kind of illustrated for you like how compact cities are and really just how uncomfortable the experience is. Okay, so this has been your guide for the urban game. Tune in next time when I come up with an equally creative voiceover for a wonderful industrial game. See ya.